Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USAPrepares.com. We're delighted you're here. We broadcast 2 hours from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. And Nathan is engineering the broadcast. One of the things I'd love to be able to do, and I hope to be able to do it soon, is attend one of Nathan's performances. He's an accomplished musician. I'd love to see him on stage. He's engineered the broadcast many times for us over the years. Does an outstanding job. Today, Guineith Isaacs is with us, live from Australia. If you'd like to give us a call, 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. And if you'd like to take us with you as you travel, 605-477-3249. 605-477-3249. That's the listen line. Welcome, Guineith. Is Guineith with us?
I said it too early. Yeah. It's 2 a.m. in the morning here, and I've been awake for about 5 minutes. So I think I'm doing pretty well.
So, Guineith,
I don't know. Yeah.
It's great to hear your voice, and for those who are new to the broadcast, Guineith is off-grid, and she generates her own electricity, and she is a real farmer, and she's doing it the old-fashioned way. She's storing her water and raising her food, and it's a real challenge for those of us who are farmers. And it's delightful to have you share with us your insight, your experience, things you've learned over the years. Guineith, what would you like to chat about today?
Okay, I probably didn't send you, the talking points. I think that I was going to, and then something happened. I actually, to help, fund the farm, I do tarot readings, and I work through a particular phone line, and I think the phone must have rung or something, and I didn't hit that button.
Well, Guineith, let's share with our broadcast class how we do this. When Guineith talks about talking points, what that means, class, is she will think about some of the things that she's ready to talk about. And she'll send me an email from Australia, and she'll say, here are the things that I would like to talk about. And in this case, and it's not a script. It's generally just a list of items that, we'd like to share. And I think about, as we get ready for the broadcast, prepare for the broadcast, days in advance, I think about the things that, in my experiences, that connect the dots with what Guineith would like to say. And that's how we do some of the broadcasts. Now, there are other broadcasts that on USA Prepares that we don't do that. And one of those is Dr. Norman Shealy. Dr. Norman Shealy finds out what we're going to talk about when we're on the air. That's when he finds out what's in my mind. Other than that, it's nice to have some kind of not even an outline, just bullet points, 3 words, per line, that kind of thing. So, Guineith, where are we going today?
Okay, where we're going today is, what happens when your government stops being your government, okay? In Melbourne, they have a festival. They've had it for the last 50 or 60 years, every single year in Melbourne, okay? And it's called Moomba. And what the Moomba Festival, that's Moomba, what the Moomba Festival is it's a real old-fashioned type of city festival where you have a parade and you have dancing girls out the front and you have floats and you have, clowns walking alongside throwing out lollies and all of this sort of stuff that I'm sure you're not allowed to do under OH&S these days because somebody might choke on one of them. Every city, once upon a time, used to have these sorts of city festivals, right? You know what I mean, Vincent?
Absolutely. When I lived in Virginia, we lived in a small town of about 500 people, and we had an annual parade. And now we had floats, and the farmers would have their wagons, and they would be displaying something on their wagons, and the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts would be there, and the cotillion would be there. The young girls who are learning dance would be there, and they'd all be dressed up in their whatever, whether they be costumes or uniforms or whatever. They'd be nicely dressed, and they would go down the main street in our little hamlet of 500 people. And yes, some would throw out, Jolly Rancher type candies, hard candies, and they just throw them from the wagon. So, yeah, and I miss that. I think that is something that is dying, at least in the United States. Other than the Macy's parade, other than that, I don't see many parades anymore where the village gets together and they all, line up along the sides and watch the event. You're absolutely right, and it's a part of history that I miss.
Yeah. Well, Melbourne is a city of about 3 million people, okay? So to have a whole city of about 3 million people turn out and do this was really quite something. But you know what? The Moomba Festival has been endangered in recent years, starting this year and continuing, starting last year, 2016, continuing this year. Every year when they have the Moomba Festival, it has been attacked. I think I've mentioned the Apex gangs before on this broadcast, by gangs of thugs who turn this wonderful, festive, they hold it usually on a weekend or a public holiday, or they make a public holiday, and they've taken this and they have turned it into a riot, and they've started throwing things, punching people, setting things alight, and so on and so forth, okay? And then the blue team has to get involved. But do you know something? They just happen to be there with their riot gear on the spot.
So let me see if I've got this right. They're expecting a riot. They're expecting violence.
There's never been a riot in over 5 decades of Moomba history. There's never been a riot.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been lots of fun. It's always been carnival rides at the end, okay, in the park. It's been, in recent years, skateboard and BMX bike competitions and this sort of thing, and amateur talent shows, and all of this sort of thing. There's never been a riot. Never, ever, 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 except for the last 2 years. Last year, 2016, and this year.
Do you think do you think there are provocateurs who are inciting this kind of bad behavior?
I think there absolutely are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's just all a bit too convenient. And I was even looking last year, which was the first year when the young thugs really got going for the first time, of photos of this on the internet, and the police happened to be there in their riot gear. Now, how long does it take to get dressed up in one of these silly riot gear costumes? You know, was that their fancy dress for the day? It must take probably at least half an hour or an hour to properly put all that stupid stuff on. You know, the perspex shields, the helmets, the bulletproof vest.
It's more than that. Think about the typical family that wants to get ready to go someplace. Let's say go shopping. Say, okay, ready? Let's go shopping. How long does it take to leave the house? Probably a half an hour.
Yeah.
Half hour to an hour. Okay, everybody's got to go to the bathroom
Especially
3 times.
Little kids.
Yeah. So here's the point that I'm trying to make. That now when you get a small army of people dressed in battle dress, I'm talking about looking like a SWAT team. I'm talking about the shin pads, the knee pads, the bullet-resistant vests, the arm pads, the billy clubs, the shields, the hat. You know, everybody's got to be dressed up uniformly, right? And they all have to get done, and so they can leave at the same time. So how long would that take? You're absolutely right. I'll bet you it takes an hour to get everybody lined up.
I would say for the whole regiment,
yeah, you're
probably looking at 5 or 6 hours of planning before then to get them all leaving on time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's no way that they just happen to show up at that time with their riot shields and all their gear.
Mm-hmm. And they're given orders, as to at what level do they start pushing forward, at what level do they start taking their batons out, at what level do they take their tasers out, at what level do they start using tear gas, at what level do they start pulling their handguns or their semi-automatic rifles, at what level
don't forget the horses either.
Right. And horses are kind of intimidating if you're standing next to one. Yeah, especially a big horse.
They can be dangerous.
Absolutely.
They can kill you.
And the horses, yes, they can, and trample you, and horses can get spooked.
Especially if they do that sweeping around maneuver that they do.
Mm-hmm.
They can sweep you underneath them and into their hooves, and then you're gone. You're finished.
Guineith Isaac's with us, live from Australia. We'll be right back. Guineith Isaacs is with us, and you can contact her by going to usaprepares.com, page number 1. There's a link, and also you can go to the instructors tab at usaprepares.com to get her contact information. Guineith, please continue. You're talking about the Moonba Festival, Moonba, in Melbourne, where there are 3 million people, and it's gotten out of control in the last couple of years. What do you think is causing this?
Okay, well, basically it's come out in the press, the provocateur groups that are involved, and they are called the Apex Gang or the Apex Gangs. Now, most newspapers will not report anything about who the Apex Gang members are, what they're like, or anything other than to say that they are gangs of young people, including the young people that I've mentioned in previous broadcasts, rioting in the juvenile justice centres. Okay? Now, it turns out that these gangs of young people, because the Herald Sun newspaper has actually published this information. Now, the Herald Sun is Rupert's rag in Melbourne, okay? Remember that Rupert Murdoch is actually Australian, that his father was also Australian. His father's first paper was the Adelaide Advertiser. And the Herald Sun, or I think it was in that day the Sun Herald, was a very early acquisition of Rupert Murdoch, and he still owns it. Okay? So because he said it, I think I'm at liberty to say it, that it's actually the Sudanese gangs of young immigrants, okay, young Muslim immigrants that are causing this violence. And there are other parts of the gang that are Maori and Pacific Islander. Now, they're trying to say that the Maoris are, causing a lot of the trouble as well. I kind of believe it, but I couldn't believe that they would be the ones who would start it, because I actually grew up among the Maori people in Rotorua in New Zealand. And they were some of the absolute loveliest people that you could possibly imagine. But yes, they did have a warlike streak. I think that the Maoris are being used. I don't think that they're the ones who are instigating it, okay? And I think that the mothers of these Maori young people are out there somewhere, and they are extremely worried about their children. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's, if you're going to arrest me, then go and arrest Rupert Murdoch as well for saying that, because he said it in his paper. I'm only re-reporting what I read on the Herald Sun's website, that it's Sudanese gangs, Muslim young people, and Maori young people. I actually like the Maori people. I don't know any Sudanese people, so I can't comment one way or the other on them. But I'm not against these people, but I'm saying that these are the people who are doing it. And the Sudanese, at any rate, have mostly come from immigrant, supposedly refugee families, whether they were or not. So they basically came to this country, but a lot of these immigrants, they're calling them refugees. 99% of them are military-aged men, and that's not good. That's a Trojan horse, okay? I have not got any problem with, refugee immigration, but I do have a big problem with it being used as a Trojan horse to import a problematic population to disrupt the show and to destabilise the whole society.
So
I have a definite problem with that.
And do you think that the idea behind this might be... Guineith is with us, and Guineith, I was mentioning to our engineer, Kyle, off the air, one of the things you said about the blue team, and I think it bears mentioning again, if it's okay with you, and that is that the blue team has been known to ask for special consideration when some members of the blue team pull over young ladies.
Yep. Absolutely.
It's like, you can get out of this ticket if we just work out some kind of an arrangement. And what I'm talking about, class, well, why don't I just say it? Sex. Isn't that what we're talking about?
Absolutely. I'm going to come around to your house later at midnight.
Is that how it goes?
You're going to spend all night drinking tea and playing chess. Yeah, right, whatever.
Mm-hmm. And so there's an implied threat there, right? And then does it stop right there, Guineith? So one ticket equals one performance?
No.
Or it... No?
No. Once you I'll tell you what, a very, very long time ago, my dad was a really, really wise guy, okay? He had studied global politics. He was from a blue blood family. His branch of the family had been cut off from the main family tree fairly ruthlessly. Only probably about 3 generations or 4 generations before him. Okay? The family memory was strong. And one thing that he told me was, Jenny, that's, my actual birth name. Guineith is the Scottish version of Jenny. He said, don't ever, 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 ever give in to blackmailers, okay? Which means extortion. Never give in to extortion. It never stops at just one payment. No, never. And do you know something? I have applied that rule all through my life, and it has frustrated the daylights out of people who have tried to win it over me in a not very nice way all through my life, because that's a rule that I have. I never give in to extortion. I never give in to blackmail. And I believe that in previous years the U.S. government had a similar rule, which was that they did not talk to terrorist groups and they did not negotiate with hostage takers. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, they negotiate. They negotiate until, what I understand, they negotiate with hostage takers. However, that's to buy them time
until they can get the SWAT team ready.
That's correct. That's correct. That's correct. And if a hostage taker is visible through a window, many times, yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. So, the old story about D.B. Cooper hopping in and demanding an airplane and a lot of cash, and then that airplane being ready for him to take off and get to whatever his destination is. That doesn't happen anymore,
No.
as far as I know.
If there was an airplane waiting these days and it actually had the fuel in it, you can guarantee that there would be a remote control rig on the remote control of it, okay, which all aircraft have all these days anyway, and there would be somebody else on the other end of it steering it, or some sort of explosive device on board timed to go off at a certain time when he was safely away from, the people that were supposed to be, released or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And
they would have some. They would provide the aircraft, but they would have some contingency plan.
Sure.
Now, getting back to the police, okay, that is absolutely what they are doing around here. Okay, I have been offered the deal myself. Okay, by Sergeant Brad Hyatt. Okay, and he has been investigated twice now by the Victorian Police Corruption Complaints Department. He's been demoted once, and as far as I can tell, he probably knows about the investigation anyway. I don't think it's confidential, but I know that it's ongoing because I have been asked to give evidence, and I have given evidence against Brad Hyatt. Because he's a piece of work. And that is the cop that I took the quote from that I said to you earlier. I'm coming around to your house later. That's a direct quote from Brad Hyatt to me 4 years ago. And this is the same policeman that I believe has goods on every other cop in the area, okay? And possibly as far away as Corio, which is a couple of 100 kilometres away. This guy is a piece of work. He has been a school bully since he was in school. He graduated because, and I know that because a particular, I used to have a boyfriend and his son went to school with Brad, okay? Recognised his name and said, that guy's a school bully. And I said, well, he's grown up and become a cop. I don't know how common that is, by the way, but I suspect it's more common than most police departments would like to recognise.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But, this is something. He controls, even if he was fired, he would still have stuff that he could blackmail every single cop within about 100-kilometre radius or 200-kilometre radius on. He knows them all. because he's been a senior sergeant in charge of a station, okay? And it was a small country station, mind you. But you get to know the other gang members. Oh, sorry, police members. I was told that's what they call themselves. They call themselves members. They're not officers anymore. They're members, okay? That's what they call each other. And it sort of, fits in with the model that I've been forming on the inside of me, that this is just another gang, okay?
Well, it's a sanctioned
club up the road. There have been no trouble whatsoever in the 4 years, and in many years beforehand, before I lived here. They've never gone out and created a riot in the middle of town. They've never had a hijacking rig, where they, hijack people on the side of the road and, prevent them from using their motor vehicles and threaten them with guns and all that sort of thing. The motorcycle club does not do that. They have their farm up on the hill, and they go there and they have parties. That's what they do. And it's their land. If they want to have a party on their land, well, that's up to them. It's a big piece of land, and we hear the occasional doof, 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 doof of their music, and that's about all.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter, because they're obviously having fun. So, so there we go, But the blue team is not like that. They have their party, and you know that someone's either going to get hurt or has just been hurt by them.
I was talking with a young person, and I mentioned to this young person that I thought that when things got bad, the police would just go home and spend time with their family. Okay, I'm talking about supply chain collapse, grid down. Some people expect them to preserve the peace and stop the pillaging.
Sorry.
And this young, well, you're right. This young person corrected me.
Yeah.
And this young person said, "No, Dad." So now you know who he was. He said, "No, Dad." No, they're going to be in business for themselves.
Yeah.
They're going to be in business for themselves.
Cool.
And that's what you're talking about. They already are in business for themselves. It's just not widely known.
Yeah.
And evidence goes missing.
Have a competition.
They do.
As we mentioned
also,
last week.
Yeah, and they collect things. In the course of their businesses, they collect things. And the sheriff ends up with a room full of these collectibles. And one of the things that they do is if someone is stopped and they think that this person might have done something wrong, they will collect that person's handgun. If that person has a gun in his car or a gun on his person, just to keep everybody safe, that gun is removed and put in the evidence room. And pretty soon we can't find it. We don't know where it is. We'll have to wait for Joe to come back because, he's in charge of it. But Joe's not here today. And, I think he'll be back next week. And you just are run ragged trying to get your property back. Yeah. Yep. And then what happens? Is after a while, the owners of the property just give up. And then there's a sheriff's sale. Then they have a sale. And it could be the annual...
Oh, there's the handgun.
Yeah, the annual property sale, personal property, where they have these large collection of guns that go on sale for other people to buy. So what happens is the sheriffs are stealing family property, in my opinion, and then they're turning it into cash, selling it to the village or anyone who's willing to buy it.
That's called fencing. It's not enclosing a paddock.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about this when we let's talk about it when we come back. Guineith, we were talking about these fencing of guns and the sale of guns and confiscated property that ends up in the sheriff's property room. And I believe that this property, let's say it was in the possession of someone who was arrested, accused, and convicted of a crime. That doesn't mean that handgun is the property of the county or of the sheriff. It's still the property of the family, in my opinion, and should be returned to the family.
Absolutely.
I don't think it's up for the sheriff to sell it and use those proceeds for buying more cartridges and weapons and handcuffs and and uniforms and MRAPs. Yeah, absolutely, MRAPs. And
By the way,
yes.
That's absolutely true what you're saying. On the topic of police, while I remember, okay, I think I mentioned previously on the broadcast that I had issued the Victoria Police with invoices for damages, okay, to the individual officers, including Brad Hyatt, but 7 of his most prominent goons as well, okay. There were issued invoices of damages for $10,000 at least each. Some of the invoices were for considerably more, to be paid in 999 minted gold coin, Australian legal tender, okay? Now, I don't think they took me very seriously at the time, but there is a particular USA prepares instructor, and he lives in New York. He is a lawyer in New York, and he has agreed to take this case and to pursue the damages, okay? But I have to raise a retainer. He has reduced the retainer considerably, but I'm setting up a GoFundMe page, okay, to help to fund the retainer. By the way, a retainer is like payment in advance for a lawyer, okay? He has considerably reduced his regular retainer for me, and because of the work that I do and because of the work that Vincent does. Okay, he doesn't do this for everyone. But Victoria Police, you're on notice, okay, that debt is collectible under the UCC code because you're a private corporation. I'm speaking to the Victoria Police here because I'm 100% aware that they monitor every one of these broadcasts. You are on notice. You will be filed with documents in the Circuit Court of the State of New York, and you will be required to answer them because otherwise you're going to be in big trouble. You're not going to be in big trouble with me. You're going to be in big trouble with whatever international debt collection agency decides to collect on this when it becomes a court decision, which it will, because this is an open and shut case. Because I had a cop, Brad Hyatt, come around. Actually, I was sleeping on the side of the road because I was exhausted. The police here advise you to pull over to the side of the road and have a sleep rather than slam your car into a neighbouring eucalyptus tree. You're on notice. You are going to have that debt collected on, and the Victoria Police as well. $1 million to be paid in gold coin. 999 Australian legal tender.
Guineith, I'm grinning from ear to ear because I know this attorney you're talking about. And he got wind that I was being attacked by another attorney. He showed up at that attorney's office and said, "Hey, wow, you guys have come a long way from your humble digs. Hey, by the way, here's what we're going to be doing." You know what? That attorney backed down immediately. This is great news. I'm grinning from ear to ear. We'll be right back. Everyone all set, cocked, locked, hour number 2 of USA Prepares with Guineith Isaacs. She's live in Australia. Guineith, I have a question for you. You know, we were talking about police offering a deal, you know, for that broken tail light or whatever the alleged offense might be. Trade a little sex, or maybe a lot of sex, for making that ticket go away. Now, that seems on the face against the law on many levels. One, demanding it, and two, trading what might be a real offense off for a private, we'll call it a reimbursement, right?
Well, that in many areas, that's definitely a criminal offence called prostitution. Mm-hmm. Prostitution's not a crime in all areas, but in many areas it is. And the other thing is that there's no guarantee that the evening's entertainment is going to be fun for the woman, and there's no guarantee that, he's going to use a condom. Mm-hmm. And who else has he been with?
Mm-hmm. And what kind of disease, kind of disease lie under that uniform?
That's right.
Yeah. And
if he's been offering it to you, he's probably been offering it to every broad on the broadwalk.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this: when you found out that you had a uniformed policeman demanding sex from you, how did that go? Was it a demand? Maybe I shouldn't have said it. Was it a question? How was it presented to you?
Well, it was presented that, I was having, over here the official term that the police themselves use is power nap by the side of the road, okay? They say, pull over, have a sleep, continue on your journey, okay? Instead of running off the side of the road because you have been driving, to the point of exhaustion. And, like I said, hitting a gum tree and killing yourself, killing everybody in the car, and generally making a big mess. He said he basically threatened to, because the car was untidy, we'd just moved, we'd just had a big day of shifting fencing material around. And he said, I'm concerned for the welfare of your children. That's a script. If any cop says that, you say, listen, I know what you're about. You get out of my life and never ever come back. If anyone says that to you, don't let them cow you. They're operating to a script. So basically, he threatened a spurious involvement of child protection because I happened to have my 2 sons in the car with me, okay? Totally spurious. There was, but what do you expect us to look like after a hard day's farm work other than completely exhausted? And basically said, I'm coming around to your house later. That's a direct quote, okay? And I responded, if you come around to my house without a warrant, that's called trespass. And he never did come around, okay? It's about knowing your rights. It's about standing up for your rights. It's about not being cowed by the uniform, okay? Underneath that uniform, there is a gangster. They are operating as a private corporation, okay? They, on every level, operate as their own little club. They have their clubhouse. They don't care about you. They're not there to solve crime. If they were there to solve crime, they would have their office open, and if there were shoplifters or whatever operating in the town, then they would be easily available to help out, to go and get the shoplifter and stop them from stealing lollies from the supermarket or whatever. You go to that police station 9 times out of 10, there's absolutely nobody there. There's a button on the door, and you can press that if you like, but you might be waiting a while before you get an answer.
In our neck of the woods, in the cities around our farm, the police are well secured. They are behind bulletproof glass. So if you go to the police station and you want to talk to somebody, they are behind bulletproof glass, and they look at you and they determine whether they will or won't talk to you based on whatever criteria they have. And you're absolutely right about solving crime. I'd stopped at a lumber yard and I bought some lumber, and there was a time when I used to have a wallet, and my wallet was a long men's wallet. It was like a check. It had my checking register and my checks in there inside the wallet, and there were little pockets for credit cards and a permit to travel on the highway, and things like that, and some cash. And that was taken. And I had that in a little computer type bag, a very small bag, and it was like a men's pocketbook, but it had all my stuff in it. And it was taken from my car, and so I went to get a replacement driver's permit to travel on the road, and I had to pay for that. And believe it or not, whoever stole it was kind enough to send back my driver's license, my credit cards, and my check register, but not the cash that was in there. And it was a lot of cash. As a matter of fact, I was going to buy some farm equipment, and it was about a little over $3,000, and that was what was taken. Okay, so I'm loading the truck in the back, and someone goes in through it was a summer day, and someone goes in through the window and grabs my bag.
Well, out of the front seat.
So I contacted the post office. I got the information. I related to the sheriff's office to solve this crime, because the person who stole it from me was kind enough to give me my credentials back, if you will, but not the cash and not the other items in the bag. Yeah. So I presented everything.
$3,000 is a lot of money.
It was a little more than that.
Chasing. Yeah.
Now, if that were a bank holdup, they'd solve that. They'd be all over it. There'd be SWAT teams. I mean, there'd be blue uniforms everywhere. But because it was me, nothing happened. Literally, nothing happened. And of course, our insurance company says, "Well, we don't replace cash." So you're under the delusion or the illusion or the misconception that your insurance company is there for you, and they're probably not. And the police, you think, are going to investigate. And I gave them all the details. I gave them the phone number for the post office 10 miles or 15 or 20 miles down the road. I gave them the postmaster's name. I gave them the information that the postmaster gave me, the description of the guy who brought my stuff in, got a box from, priority mailbox from the post office, the description of the guy who did everything. And did it do any good? No.
I bet you they did diddly squat.
I think that's exactly what they did.
Nothing.
Diddly squat. I have to look up what that means, but I believe it means absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Right. That's what they did. They gave me a little bit of lip service for a while, and then they just hoped I would go away. And so you're right. You're right. In terms of the blue team solving crimes. I think they'll try to solve murders. I think they'll try to solve bank robberies. But if it comes to just, we the little people, I don't think they're there for us. Except, to remind us, hey, that taillight's out, and that's only a $75 infraction, plus court costs if you want to go and if you want to fight it. But I've also noticed that if I'm traveling out of state and I get pulled over, I get selected for being pulled over when other people who are in state don't seem to get selected for being pulled over. And I believe that's because you really can't go to... Right. You really can't drive 600 miles or 400 miles to that other state to show up when they tell you will be there at the time and place that they demand. And, you lose a day's worth of work, preparation. You go, $400 ticket. Well, that's a lot of money, but I guess I'm better off just paying it. And then you've got that item on your record. One other thing, Guineith, I'd like to share with you. One of our instructors was at a meetup, and he's a former cop, and he didn't like it. He didn't like the fact that he was asked by his superiors to go back and update records and enter records as to what happened on these police reports. And he was told to, well, just because it says that, that's really not what it means. Type this in instead. What I'm talking about is change police records. So the next time you're in court, you may find out that what you thought happened isn't what happened. And let me give you an example of what I believe will happen to me. I was at a convention, and 3 police officers in uniform showed up, and they asked me to leave. I was talking to a guy who was running for U.S. Congress, and I had his business card in my hand, and I was with one of our other instructors. And these 3 uniformed police officers fanned out in front of me, and they said, "Are you Mr. Finelli?" And I said, "Yeah." "What's up?" And they said, would you step outside?" And I said, "Did I do something wrong?" And they said, "Please step outside." And I said, "Did you see me do something wrong?" They said, "Please step outside." And I said, "Or what?" "Or you're going to jail." Now, I have a record for being approached by these police officers twice because some guy called the cops on me and made up a story. Said I probably did something I didn't do. So now I have a record. George is coming up next in just a second. I just wanted to mention that, this situation where the police are called on me twice by someone. Well, I was a former cop. Former cop calls for the police to be called to come because there's a problem. There's this guy, Vin Finelli, and he's got to be a troublemaker, and you better come because he could be dangerous and he could do something. And so 3 cops show up at this convention, and they stand in front of me, and they're armed. And one of these uniformed guys has his gun belt. He's holding his gun belt with his left hand, and his right hand is ready to draw on me. And so the 3 in front of me, and what I didn't realize at the time was there was another cop behind me. What was he there for? Well, he was there in case the first 3 missed. And so what is this? I'm serious. This is where there's a record in my file with the police department that says they were called on 2 separate occasions, and I can just see if I ever end up in court in that jurisdiction where they say, Mr. Finelli, I can see that you are a real problem. We've had to come out. We've had to send 4 armed officers because you were disruptive, and I wasn't. I didn't do a thing. Literally, I mean, it sounds like, it's just my side. No, I wasn't doing anything. I was just talking to exhibitors and vendors and this guy running for Congress, having a good time. But somebody didn't like the idea that I was there. And so they called the police, and they said that I was involved in criminal trespass. And, I walked in, I paid my $10 like everybody else. I'm standing at this convention. It was actually a preparedness show. I'm standing there, and most of the exhibitors knew who I was. A lot of the guests knew who I was. And so that's what happened to me, and I can just see how this can be used against me. And how do you fix it? How do you fix that police report? I don't think you can. George in New Hampshire, welcome.
Hello, Guineith. I worked in law enforcement for a time, but before that I was with the Postal Service. And I'll just tell you this, Minnie, there's a lot of people who find purses or wallet that somebody has stolen, taken the money out and just thrown the rest of it by the side of the road, wherever. And a lot of people don't want to get involved. And I'm going back years ago. A lot of them didn't want to get involved for whatever reason. Maybe they might even think that they might be accused of doing something they didn't. And what they'll do is they'd either head for the nearest mailbox, just drop in the purse, drop in the wallet with credit cards. It's happened to me when I did what they call collections. I was cleaning out the boxes of all the mail that was there, and I turned it in at the office. One time, I actually delivered it a few blocks away because I said the guy must be going crazy. It was loaded with all his personal IDs and everything, and I brought it back to him. And I didn't even get so much as a thank you. Not that I wanted anything for it, just a simple thank you. And I said, well, from now on, I'm just turning it into the main office, and that's what I did. But I think that's what may have happened to you. I think some good Samaritan returned your wallet and your IDs, but they didn't want to get involved, and maybe you could kind of understand why when you can see when certain law enforcement people get involved.
I can. However, the postmaster actually handled the transaction with this person. And this person just said, this man paid for the mailing of the priority mailbox back to me. So I don't know.
Does that
I
sound
really
like
don't.
The kind of person who would steal it in the first place, or does that sound like someone who wanted to minimize the damage to you by just coming and putting himself in your place, saying, gee, if that was me, that poor guy must be, really at odds because of not having proper ID to conduct his business, and he just wanted to get it back to you as quick as he could. That's what I think happened, Ben.
That's an excellent point, George. And you may be absolutely right. But what I found was on the other side of the equation, the police really weren't interested.
Well, and I know, and I'm sure, Guineith, you'll agree with this. If you don't pay a parking ticket, they'll chase you to the ends of the earth for whatever that amount is. But if you throw a real crime at a lot of these individuals, they don't want to do the work. And I've seen that time and time again. And the older people who are in the police, there are a lot of good ones. And they're getting rarer and thinner on the ground where they actually take the job seriously and they want to try to serve and protect.
George, do you want to hold through the break? Yes or no? I didn't hear you.
Yes, please.
Great. Sounds great. We'll be right back. Guineith is with us in Australia. George is in New Hampshire. Mike in Maryland, you're up next. George, I wanted to make a comment. I saw a cop, and I know this was a cop. I know this man. I saw him in an out-of-state convenience store, a gas station kind of convenience store. And he walked in. I happened to be traveling with him and another man, another broadcaster. And I saw it was my turn to pump gas. So I pumped gas, and the other two guys went into the convenience store to get something to drink. And what I saw was this former cop walk over to the shelf where they had headache powders and remedies. And I saw him just quietly take this off the shelf and put it in his cargo pants pocket and walk out the door. I saw it. And I walked out the door after him, and I just looked at him. I stared at him like, are you serious? I didn't say anything, just looked at him. And he goes, oh. And he reached in his pocket, and I forgot to pay for this. Now, I talked with his wife one day, and I said, I believe that, there's some good cops, and I believe there's some bad cops. And I'm thinking there's probably about 10% that are bad. And she said, well, the 10% is right. And I'm paraphrasing. But it's the 10% is right, but those are 10% good cops, and 90% are on the take. Now that includes big take and little take. So going into the donut shop and getting free donuts and a cup of coffee, because the police expect that. Going into the restaurants and getting free meals for themselves, having lunch, maybe lunch with their partner, uniformed partner. Now there's 2 lunches, and then it's it's a great restaurant. Let's bring the family for dinner. We'll start with the wife, and so now it's the wife and the cop get free dinner, and then it's the whole family, and then it spreads. So
Mom, Dad, 3 kids.
Yes, and they become accustomed to that, and I believe that is an example of what I saw with that former cop putting that headache remedy in his pocket. He just felt, he deserves it. And they drive through they drive through the drive-through windows, and they'll ask for a burger and a coffee or something like that. And the guy at the window will say, "Yeah, okay, hey, it's great to see you, Bill, on the house. Thanks so much." But, off they go. George, you have a comment?
But I'll say this, is that it really comes down to, like you say, honesty and integrity. And what happens after that, that's showing someone who's compromised and corrupt.
Yes.
And it also,
Yes.
but I'll tell you something else that's extremely hypocritical that I've noticed a pattern with them, though. If they were on duty and they saw another person take a 50-cent can of cat food because they didn't have enough money for a meal that day, they would prosecute that person to the nth degree. And yet, for them, it's business as usual. Fringe benefits of the job. Now, I'm just going to say this, and then I'll get off because I know you have someone else. I like you, Vin, and I respect you. And the problem is, it's like my father used to say, and this goes for you, Guineith, you're all right. The world's all wrong. And I just want to say this, Guineith, you're a rotten ass Sheila. All right? God bless you. Bye-bye.
George, thank you. Thank you so much. Mike in Maryland, welcome. Thank you for being so patient and waiting for us.
No, hey, thanks for taking the call. Since you're devoted a good part of our show to police corruption, I'd like to recommend a guest, if I may.
Sure. I've got my pencil and paper right here.
Okay, his name is Gordon Martinez, and it's with an S, not a Z. And he's a talk show host on RBN. He's on republicbroadcasting.org. republicbroadcasting.org. His show was Saturday, 6 o'clock Central, 7 Eastern. Saturday at 6 o'clock Eastern, 7 Eastern. And he has 36 years experience as a law enforcement officer. And he was driven out of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department for exposing corruption. And he's been a member of a SWAT team, motorcycle cop. He's done it all. And his show is pretty much dedicated to exposing police corruption, not just in Las Vegas, but nationwide. So I think he would make a good guest, Gordon Martinez.
Well, Mike, I'm so glad you reminded me of Gordon Martinez. I happened to be at a convention in Las Vegas, and I was sitting at this table with about 8 to 10 people. And at that table was Gordon Martinez. And I have his business card, and we chatted, and we talked about him coming on the air with me, and I will call him. I will. And I'm so glad you reminded me. He's a wonderful man. I really like him, and he's I would say he's an acquaintance, but I would love him to join the faculty because I totally respect him for what he's been through and what he has seen and what he's exposing. So you are right on the money. My apologies for not having him on the air prior to this, but I did meet him in Las Vegas when I was at a convention, and we talked for well over an hour. And you know how when you sit at a table and you're with a whole bunch of other people, but you really sync up and link with one person, and you kind of spend most of your time chatting with that one person? Well, that's what it was like with Gordon Martinez. And you mentioned Republic Broadcasting. Republic Broadcasting and USA Prepares are friends. As a matter of fact, the owner of Republic Broadcasting, John Statmiller, called me last night, and he and I are very close. And he does something that no other network, I think, would do. And that is he, with my permission, grabs usaprepares.com, the broadcast, and plays it in its entirety every weekday morning from 6 a.m. To 8 a.m. on Republic Broadcasting. And I don't think there's, if you think about it, do you ever see the ABC team on NBC or the CBS team on Fox? You never see that. But here we have Republic Broadcasting. They like us so much in what we do, and they believe in our mission so much that they broadcast USA Prepares on Republic Broadcasting. And of course, I need to thank Genesis Communications Network because they've agreed to it. They've agreed to let this broadcast run on another network. So there you have it.
That's pretty rare.
I think it's the only
Almost
exception.
unheard of.
I've never heard of it ever happening before. And, John Statmiller has been on this broadcast. And here's how nice of an association this is. John Statmiller as I mentioned, owns Republic Broadcasting. I've been to his home. He's been to my home. He's been on the air with us here as an instructor. I've filled in for him on his network, on his show. It's a wonderful relationship that we have because Genesis and Republic Broadcasting both feel that the message is paramount. The most important thing that we can do is get the word out. And I want to thank Ted Anderson, John Harmon at GCN, and our engineers for the part they've done and are doing, and John Stattmiller and his engineers for the part that they're doing. I thank them all from the bottom of my heart. It actually brings a tear to my eye that they would consider doing it. But it's gone way beyond that. This has happened for a number of years that we've been sharing this broadcast. So thank you very much. Mike, thank you. Is there anything else we can discuss?
No, I just want to say you got a great show, and both of you and John are in the truth department, and I want to give a shout out to Guineith. She rocks, and I love her accent. Y'all take it easy.
Mike, hold on for just hold on for just 1 second, Mike. I want to tell you how this happened. So Guineith, months and months and months ago, Guineith called me from Australia, and I thought, wow, this is an expensive call. And she would call me, and we'd chat. And then one day, this is off the air, one day I said, Guineith, would you like to come on the air with me? And she said she'd love to. Correct me if I'm wrong, Guineith, but I think that's something like that. And
that's
so Guineith came on.
That's what happened, yep.
Yeah. And then Guineith was on the air with us a number of times. And then I said to Guineith, Guineith, how about 2 hours? Would you like to be on with me every Tuesday for 2 hours? And she would pay the bill up until today for the 2 hours of broadcast time and the 1 hour prior to that from Australia. And now Genesis is kind enough to place the call to her. So that's how it happened. So here's what I'm saying, class. USA Prepares has a faculty that many of the faculty have risen from being students listening to us on the broadcast, and they've contacted me and they said, here is something that I think is valuable and worthy to put out across the globe on USA Prepares. And I listen, and if I agree, it happens. So if you have something that you want to share, I'm speaking to the entire broadcast classroom worldwide, let me know. You can contact me at vincent@usaprepares.com, and we'll do our best to make it happen. And that's how it works. And Mike, I really appreciate you jogging my memory about that.
Well, I'm glad I could help out, and I'll get up there and let somebody else talk, and you have a good day.
Thank you so much. When we get back, Guineith and I will be talking about how farms used to be run and how food used to be grown. You need to know this because growing season is coming up. Guineith Isaacs and I will be right back.
Yep.
Link on the website to Guineith, usaprepares.com. Class, if you're wondering where to find Guineith Isaacs, if you go to usaprepares.com and you click on the instructors tab, you will see names like Mike Ma, How to Negotiate for Your Life, Scotty Kilmer, and he's a automobile mechanic, Kurt Wilson, the armchair survivalist, Guineith Isaacs, farming off-grid and telephone readings. So if you'd like to contact her, right there, instructors tab at usaprepares.com. Guineith, raising food, how farms used to be run.
Okay. I just want to say quickly, okay, I don't use Facebook Messenger, okay? It's spyware. It turns your phone camera and it turns your phone microphone on at random moments. So the broadcast class needs to know if they use Facebook Messenger. I can't reply to any of your stuff, okay?
How would you like them to contact you?
Best is by email. Okay, that's guineith@gmail.com.
Okay, I'm going to update the website, and if it's okay with you, I'll put your email address on there right now. Is that okay with you?
That's great. Yep, the Facebook page is good for information. The cleric page still gets posted to. I haven't been posting to it lately because I've been busy doing other stuff, but I haven't forgotten it, and it's probably going to get some more posts in the next day or two. Okay. Yep. So, but yeah, if you could update that, then that would be great, because I've noticed that I've had a couple of people try to get a hold of me on Facebook Messenger, but it's quite frankly Zuckerberg's spyware, and I'm not happy to have whoever listening into my phone microphone and using my phone's camera to spy on me, which is perfectly understandable.
Guineith@gmail.com.
Yep.
Guineith @gmail.com. Okay, posting it right now.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Now, how farms used to be run. I was looking at my farmyard. Now, this farmyard that I have does not really make money, but what it makes is it makes food. Okay? It goes pretty well, it doesn't 100% feed us yet, but the aim is that one day that it will, okay? And I was looking at how I operate my farmyard compared to how other people operate their farmyards. And do you know something? It's a little bit different. It's a little bit more old school, because if you were to come to my place randomly in the middle of the day, you would never catch me unawares. Okay? You would probably find me at home, and you would probably be met at the gate by between 3 and 5 or 6 dogs, depending on who I had off at the time. Okay? You would, and they are loud even when a kangaroo shows up. We live in Australia. There's thousands of kangaroos in the forest, and wallabies as well. A wallaby is like a kangaroo but smaller. When they show up in the forest at night, the dogs bark in the middle of the night and wake everybody up until someone shouts at them. That's how farmyards used to be. The deer would be in the forest. The dogs, some of the dogs, the ones that can be trusted, are on 24-hour security detail. Okay?
Sounds like our farm.
They are not going to harm anybody's livestock. Okay? A lot of people, if you can't trust a dog 24 hours a day off the chain, it needs to be on a chain at least at night in a rural area, because otherwise it's just going to do too much damage. But you can train a dog to not touch the animals. Okay, is that the end of the show, or do we have another segment?
No, that's it. We're done for today, but we'll see you again. Yeah, I know. We'll see you next Tuesday. Guineith Isaacs, thanks so much for being with us.
Okay.